record this. And let's see, we'll get over here. Okay, I guess by the time everybody views this, I just want to talk a little bit ground rules and how I feel about stuff. First off, getting here on time is important. So please do your best to get here on time. If something's up and you're going to be late, just shoot me an email, let me know. And then what I do is I put a T. If you talk to me, I put a T, E, already, and it's excuse if you talk to me. I don't even count. Same thing for absences. If you're not going to be here, then just email me, let me know. And when I mark I mark every day over here in the book. I mark it an A, and I mark it either U for unexcused, you didn't talk to me, or I mark it E, yes, you did talk to me, it's excused, and I don't even count it. If you get 3 of those U's, I'm going to drop you. Done. If you get 2 absences and you hadn't talked to me, or excuse me, 2 tardies and you hadn't talked to me, that's an equal absence. 3 absences, I'm going to drop you. Okay. The other thing about that is it counts on your memory, it counts on participation rate. If you've got, if you're a borderline grade, that 10% can bring you up or take you down. All right. The other thing is professional courtesy. I'm really big on that. And so if you get up and leave class early without checking with me or anything like that, to me, that's professionally discourteous. So we're not going to do that. Okay. Now, if you've got something to do, life happens. Mr. Davies, I got to go fly at 2:15 or 2 o'clock. Boom. Get out of here. All right, I'm totally cool with that. But if you just get up and walk out the door, I'm going to get disturbed. Okay, and I'm going to mark you absent. That's going to be one of your absences. Okay. So you just need to know that's what that professional courtesy is huge. Right? You need to take that habit into your job place. Okay. The other thing is I like to wrap up at the end. So if you guys are standing up and all around, well, you're not getting the wrap up either. So let's stay seated, if you will, until I say, man, I'm all done, and then get up and get out of here and don't let the door hit you in the butt on the way out. Okay, for sure. But that's part of being professionally courteous. Okay, on time, wall to wall, and respect each other. And that, you got something, life happens, you got something going on, talk to me. I'm a happy guy. Okay? The other thing is doing the work. That kind of helps too. I've got a number of students that don't like to do the work or haven't been doing their work in a course or two. That's the last thing I'll say. Let's make sure, I told the student earlier today, the further behind you get, the harder you got to swim. Does that make sense? So, and I know I'm not talking to everybody, but I am actually talking to everybody by this. And so, if it applies, apply it to what I've said. Now you know my expectation. If it doesn't apply to you, then toss it down the toilet and do what you've been doing at the happy point. Okay? And that's the last I'll say about that. All right, first things first. Hello, Paris online. All right. I do want to, let's see, let me really very, very quickly, let's share the schedule real quick. I like to do that at the beginning always. And I hope you guys are paying attention to it. We do have a quiz today. We'll get that later. Schedule-wise, all right, so we're through the 28th. We got Module 1. We're all working on Module 2 right now. I think completed notes were due the 28th. And I will say, thank you to everybody in both sections. Everybody turned it in. I don't know if it was on time. I hadn't checked. But as of today, everybody, all 17 people turned in their work. Thank you. If that keeps up after one or two times or two or three times or whatever, remember, I'll stop taking them. Okay. And I think you guys would like that. But it's good. Let's see. Module 2, we're good. Here we go. Where's my next? All right. No, that's too far down. All right, guys. All right, so 28th, we got that. Today's going to be quiz 1. If you're online, you got till midnight to do it. If you're in here, you got today. We'll throw it out there. If we don't get to it, you'll have till midnight to do it. And of course, you can do your notes, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because I can't tell the online guys not to use their notes. I guess I could, but how could I monitor it, right? So to be fair, you guys can use your notes on the quiz, and it's not too hard. Next Monday, we are off, so you don't have to worry about that. We'll start Module 3. Well, I actually am probably a couple sections of Module 2 we'll finish up and start Module 3. We'll clean everything up on that next Monday. And then probably, I may move this test up. Let's see how far we get. So we may either test the 13th or the 18th. And that test will cover modules 1 through 3. Now, that being said, let's see. Module 3 is now open, and I'll be handing out the notes for Module 3. So all the stuff on Module 3 is open. So between now and next week and everything, if you want to get started on that, you certainly can, and you can see that test 1 is posted right there. Of course, it's hidden. Hello. All right. Let's see. So Module 2 notes will be due the 10th, and then shortly thereafter, when we test, we'll want the Module 3 notes. Okay. So that covers the schedule. Questions about that? Hopefully everybody can keep up with that. Not a big deal. All right, next. Let's go to the notes. That's not where we're going. We're going here. Let's see. I got the first accident case study. It's about 20 minutes. Let's watch this thing. I don't know if we're going to watch the whole thing, but let's. Icing is a bad thing, and it can get you into a hum like right now. So we're going to take a look at that. Sounds scary, doesn't it?
It's the morning of April 16th, 2018, and the Beechcraft Bonanza, November 9345 Quebec, is flying IFR over central Ohio. The pilot and his passenger are en route to DeLand Municipal Airport in Florida. Instrument conditions prevail in the airplane's current location, and the Bonanza is accumulating light rime icing at 4,000 feet. The pilot descends to 3,000 feet to clear the clouds and hopefully eliminate the ice.
Okay, we're underneath the clouds right now. Looks like it's clearing up. We're about 1 degree over Celsius.
4 o'clock, Roger. Thank you.
About 1 minute later, the controller notices that the Bonanza has further descended to 2,700 feet.
4 o'clock, low altitude alert. Take altitude immediately. NVA in your area is 2,900.
Okay, right now we've been getting some buffeting. We got some rime ice, but we're losing.
4 o'clock, Roger. You need to land?
Negative right now. We're clearing up.
Roger.
We're about 4 degrees over Celsius. 0 now.
Roger. 4 o'clock, use caution. The NVA in that area is 2,900.
Yeah, I understand. 2,900. 4 o'clock.
Everybody know what MVA is? Minimum vectoring altitude. Okay, so he's getting really below where the radar can see him. Okay, and he's in the mountains in southeastern Ohio, getting ready to go into West Virginia.
Despite the pilot's assurances, the Bonanza's descent continues. It's now at 2,200 feet MSL, only 1,000 feet AGL.
4 o'clock back. How you doing, sir?
We're doing okay right now. Waiting for this ice to dissipate.
It's the last transmission the pilot will make to the controller. A minute later, the airplane's altitude shows 1,500 feet before it suddenly disappears from radar. The Bonanza impacts terrain near the town of Warsaw, Ohio, killing both the pilot and his passenger. Sadly, these aren't the only lives that will be claimed by icing in the days ahead. A mere 200 miles to the east, another fatal aviation accident will soon unfold. It's now April 19th, 3 days later. At Lancaster Airport in Pennsylvania, a Cirrus SR-22, November 451 Tango Delta, is preparing to depart on an early morning cross-country flight to South Bend International Airport in Indiana. The private pilot and his passenger are traveling to attend a conference being held at an Indiana university. The pilot obtained a weather briefing using ForeFlight at 9:27 p.m. the night before, with a planned departure time of 6:45 a.m. this morning. The graphical forecast products from his briefing predicted cloud cover as low as 2,000 feet MSL, around 800 to 1,000 feet AGL, along the route of flight, and the surface forecast predicted marginal VFR conditions with likely snow shower activity. Meanwhile, terminal forecasts for several airports along the route of flight called for IFR and low IFR conditions during the airplane's passing time. The ForeFlight briefing also included airmets for IFR conditions, mountain obscuration, and moderate icing at various levels. However, these airmets were only valid until 5 o'clock a.m. on April 19th, which was before the intended departure time. After receiving the weather briefing, the pilot filed an IFR flight plan with a planned cruising altitude of 6,000 feet MSL. Now, at 7:34 a.m., the Cirrus begins its departure. The 500-hour pilot is instrument rated and current, with 28 hours of actual IMC logged. In the last 6 months, he's flown 4 flights with his instructor for the purpose of maintaining instrument currency and proficiency. Although last night's weather briefing warned of unfavorable conditions along his route, the pilot has decided to proceed with the trip. However, there's a troubling omission in his flight planning. An updated airmet advisory was recorded via the flight plan identification number at 4:52 a.m., but there is no record that the pilot retrieved this new information. If he had obtained an updated briefing, he would see that hazardous conditions are now active during the time he'll be passing through. The new airmets warn of moderate icing between the freezing level and 16,000 feet, IFR and mountain obscuration, and low-level turbulence valid until 11 a.m. Unfortunately, this Cirrus is not equipped with an anti-icing or de-icing system. The pilot and his passenger, unaware of the new weather information, set off for Indiana. It's now an hour later. Cirrus 451 Tango Delta is about 10 miles past the city of Altoona, Pennsylvania, cruising at 5,500 feet, when the pilot makes a call to ATC.
Johnstown, this is Cirrus 451 Tango Delta with a request.
Cirrus 1 Tango Delta, say request.
Just curious, if you know what the tops are of the clouds?
I do not have any tops reports standby. Let me call center and see if they have any of that area. Okay, 1 Tango Delta. Center has tops report about 25 northwest of your position, around 17,000.
He ain't making it up there.
17,000 is the tops of the ceiling cloud?
Yeah, they said that was the tops in that area.
All right, we were just in a lot of IMC. What's the bottom? Is it 4,000?
It could be lower than that. I'm showing here at Johnstown, which is 18 miles southwest of you. We have our cloud deck starts at 200 feet.
Ooh.
All right, that doesn't help me.
A minute later, the reason for the pilot's request to ATC becomes more clear.
Johnstown, this is 451 Tango Delta.
Say again.
This is Cirrus 451 Tango Delta. We're getting a little ice up here. I think I should probably get down to Johnstown.
Okay, so you want to divert to Johnstown, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Can you vector me?
1 Tango Delta, affirmative, sir. You're clear to Johnstown via radar vectors. It'll be an ILS runway 33 approach, turn left heading 160. Actually, correction, make it 170 heading vector to the ILS.
170.
And if you get the chance, the type of icing you're getting, the intensity, and the outside air temperature, please.
It's a little not bad, but it's enough to get me a little concerned.
Copy that, thank you.
The pilot's conversation with ATC indicates that he understands the severity of the situation, and he has decided his best course of action is to get on the ground.
Good.
What runway am I expected to go into, Johnstown?
1 Tango Delta, it's runway 33, the ILS, and we are having traffic information uniform. And we're showing a ceiling at 200 overcast, so that's right at the mint there for the ILS. If you still want to try it, that's fine. If not, I'm showing Altoona's weather is a little bit better. They report, or they're showing 500 overcast right now.
All right, let's go to Altoona.
With Altoona looking like the better option, the pilot alters his course. The airport is 25 miles to the southeast.
1 Tango Delta, roger. Does ILS 21 work for you?
That'd be good. What? Can you vector me that?
Yep, absolutely. 1 Tango Delta, continue left turn heading 100, vector to ILS.
100. Think I could get down to 4,000?
1 Tango Delta, descend and maintain 4,500. That'll be the lowest I can get you for a little bit.
4,500.
Cirrus 1 Tango Delta, advise when you do have the weather and NOTAMs at Altoona, and if you need me to, I can read the weather for you there. I can read the earliest observation for them.
Yeah, if you could read the weather, that'd be great.
1 Tango Delta, not a problem, sir. The 1226 Zulu observation, winds 360 at 6, visibility 1 mile, light rain, mist, ceiling is 500 overcast, temperature 6, dew point 4, and the Altoona altimeter is 2970.
What information is that?
That's just off the ASOS there. It's an uncontrolled airport.
Within the next minute, the controller notices the Cirrus changing its heading.
1 Tango Delta, I show you turning about a 200 heading right now. Say intentions.
I'm just going to try to get direct. What direction should I be?
A heading of 090 when able.
090. Yep, I'll get it back on.
Meanwhile, 451 Tango Delta has been steadily descending past 4,500 feet. The Cirrus is at 3,900 feet when the pilot checks in.
And you want me at 4,500?
1 Tango Delta, affirm, sir. Altitude 4,500 on heading of 090.
He's struggling, isn't he?
A minute later, the controller notices that the Cirrus is still at 3,900 feet.
Cirrus 1 Tango Delta, the altimeter is 2970. Just verify your level at 4,500, please.
All right, 4,500. I just dropped a little bit. I'll get it back up.
Okay, thank you, sir.
It's now 2 minutes later, and the pilot has only climbed to 4,100 feet. If his climbing difficulty is indicative of structural icing, the pilot hasn't mentioned it to the controller.
1 Tango Delta, turn 10 degrees to the left.
10 degrees left. 451 Tango Delta.
Attention all aircraft, New Johnstown, altimeter 2971. Cirrus 1 Tango Delta, turn right, heading of 120.
120, 451 Tango Delta.
The Cirrus continues to remain below its designated altitude, averaging 4,100 feet over the previous few minutes.
Cirrus 1 Tango Delta, 5 miles from road, turn right, heading 180, maintain at or above 4,300 till you're established, clear to the ILS 21 Altoona.
All right, 451 Tango Delta, turn right to 180. We're clear for the intercept.
2 minutes pass, and the controller sees that 451 Tango Delta has crossed through the localizer course for runway 21 at Altoona. The pilot hasn't realized the error.
451 Tango Delta, you've already begun through the localizer, sir. Say intentions.
I still want to get there. Can you vector me one more time?
1 Tango Delta, affirmative, sir. Maintain 4,500. Turn left, heading 090. It'll be a box pattern back to final.
090. Okay, I missed it.
The pilot turns left, but continues his left turn beyond 090. 39 seconds into the turn, the Cirrus begins to descend, and its airspeed increases. The left turn tightens, and the airplane begins to spiral. The Cirrus impacts the ground in a steep, nose-low attitude.
Cirrus 451 Tango Delta, radar contact lost.
Yeah, I guess.
Cirrus 451 Tango Delta, Johnstown approach. How do you hear me?
How do you think that controller felt?
So the ice makes it harder to fly.
Mm-hmm. So you're heavier, and it's affecting the lift across the wings. Say again? Yeah. Definitely disrupts the airflow across the wings. There's a number of things could have happened. I mean, he could have gotten into a spatial disorientation, and a lot of times when you get in a left turn like that, and it tightens up, it messes up your vestibulars, and they call that the death spiral. JFK Jr. died like that in a death spiral in Massachusetts. So ice will definitely do you in. Let's see what they say.
A review of weather information current at the time of the flight revealed that the Cirrus most likely encountered IMC about 500 feet AGL on the initial climb out from Lancaster Airport, and remained in IMC in conditions favorable to icing for the rest of the flight. Before the flight, a forecast ice...
Now, wait a minute. What are conditions favorable for icing?
Visible moisture.
Yep.
Temperature dew points below.
Anything below about 3 to 4 degrees Celsius, because remember you're in forward motion, so that lowers the yeah. Plus you're up at a higher altitude, so yeah. I mean, he probably picked up a bunch of ice while he was flying along, sure. And the Cirrus, no icing protection, none, zero.
Icing potential indicated that light to moderate intensity icing existed near the accident site, and a current icing potential product indicated that supercooled liquid droplets existed near the accident site. This weather information was available in addition to the updated AirMet advisory issued at 4:52 a.m. The NTSB could not determine to what degree the Cirrus was affected by structural icing during the approach to Altoona. At minimum, it appeared to affect the airplane's ability to maintain the altitude requested by ATC. In the end, however, icing was only one part of this fatal accident. While the pilot was maneuvering in the last seconds before the crash, he was in IMC with restricted visibility. Combined with the spiraling radar track data and the high-velocity impact with terrain, the circumstances indicated the pilot was likely experiencing spatial disorientation. The airplane's entry into a descending left turn while the pilot was being vectored back toward the localizer course, which subsequently tightened, became what's known as a graveyard spiral. The graveyard spiral can occur from a vestibular illusion associated with the return to level flight following a prolonged banked turn. There are a number of lessons that we can learn from this accident. The first and most obvious is that it's imperative to check the most recent weather conditions before departing on any flight. A study of the forecast the night before across country is always a good idea, but it's only one part of safe and thorough pre-flight planning. Weather is dynamic and ever-changing, and many aviation forecasts are updated every 6 hours, including AirMets and terminal forecasts. Flying with outdated information from a forecast 10 hours old is asking for trouble. Furthermore, with the weather information he reviewed the night before, the pilot already knew about hazardous weather to come and shouldn't have proceeded with hope that conditions would get better. After all, hope is not a strategy for flying safely. A past, present, future approach can be helpful in identifying and predicting weather trends. For example, where was the weather yesterday or several hours ago? How long did it take to reach its current condition and location? And based on that, when can I expect it to improve or worsen along my route? Another critical lesson is the need to tell ATC what's going on. As the icing accumulated and the reality of the dangerous situation set in, small clues in the pilot's language and actions were possible hints of his growing unease.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little not bad, but it's enough to get me a little concerned. Think I could get down to 4,000?
1 Tango Delta, I show you turning about a 200 heading right now. Say intentions.
I'm just going to try to get direct. What direction should I be?
It appears that the pilot desired a lower altitude with hope of finding higher temperatures. It also seems that he knew he needed to expedite his approach to the airport, indicated by his intentional, albeit unapproved, change in heading. After the controller told him that 4,500 feet was the lowest altitude he could authorize, and questioned his heading change to 200, the pilot should have countered with more assertive language to make it clear what he needed. For example, I need to get out of icing conditions. I need the lowest possible safe altitude, and I need the most direct course to Altoona. Going one step further and declaring an emergency would have been entirely appropriate. The high workload and stress the pilot was likely experiencing appears to have contributed to his failure to intercept the localizer course for runway 21 at Altoona. It's difficult to say whether the missed intercept had more to do with the icing conditions or the pilot's instrument proficiency. Shortly following was the onset of spatial disorientation. The pilot's spiraling turn and subsequent crash is a stark reminder of the insidious nature of spatial disorientation. It can affect any pilot, even one who is instrument rated and current. While some details of the pilot's IFR refresher flights in the previous 6 months were published by the NTSB, we don't know their true impact on the pilot's proficiency. It's important that instructors customize training to suit pilots' individual needs and types of flying, especially during seasons of cold, snow, and icing. CFIs should conduct risk management training using real-world scenarios to improve pilots' decision-making. This is an important component of the FAA's Airman Certification Standards. We also don't know how reliant the pilot was on using the autopilot in the Cirrus. The radar data showed that the airplane was flying a relatively smooth and consistent flight path that was indicative of the pilot using the autopilot for the majority of the flight, until the final turn after flying through the localizer course. Another suggestion for instructors is to encourage the practice of periodically hand-flying the airplane to keep a pilot's stick and rudder skills sharp. Finally, a small detail discovered during the post-crash investigation proved troubling. The NTSB found that the pilot had not removed the safety pin for the Cirrus airframe parachute system before flight. Removing this safety pin is critical to ensure proper operation of the parachute system. This is a standard Cirrus checklist item, and it appears 3 times. Remove the pin during the pre-flight walk-around, verify it is removed before engine start, and verify once more before takeoff. We don't know if the pilot attempted to pull the parachute before the crash, but if he had, it could have been a life-saving maneuver had the pin been properly removed. The crash of November 451 Tango Delta, as well as the loss of 2 lives in November 9345 Quebec a few days earlier, is a sad and sobering look at the hazardous nature of icing and the effects it has on both the aircraft and pilot. In the Bonanza accident, the pilot failed to obtain an official weather briefing. In the Cirrus accident, the pilot neglected to obtain an updated briefing. It's a reminder to us that in general aviation, weather is one of the largest factors determining the safety of a flight. In today's flying environment, new technologies provide near real-time weather observations that can help us use the most complete information available to optimize our decisions. If we don't use all of the tools at our disposal to make a full assessment of the weather, we put ourselves and our passengers at risk.
Okay. Yeah, thoughts? Yeah. What do you guys think?
Never know when.
I mean, a good rule of thumb is if you've got an aircraft with no icing protection, you don't go into visible moisture, i.e. clouds, below the freezing level. Period. End of story. And we had that when I'm flying helicopters, that was our rule number one. You know, never go IFR if you're, you know, we said, you know, 4 degrees or below, we would try and stay out of it. So we could go into some in the King Air, but we had icing protection. I mean, we had icing protection on the props, boots on the leading edge of the wing. So you don't want to do a whole lot, but you know, at least you had something. And I picked up ice a couple times. Never really liked it. Picked up. But yeah, good rule of thumb. Where if you're flying a Cessna 172 or the Vulcan airs over here, no. Okay. Never, ever. That'll keep you alive. Okay, and we're going to study icing specifics later on. Okay. All right. What's next? Let's see. I want to do. Let's pull your notes out real quick, and let's review what we've done on it. And there we go. There it is. Let's just kind of take a look at what we've done and what we have left to do. We talked about matter, energy, thermal energy, heat energy, the difference between heat and temperature. We talked about that. We talked about heat transfer, conduction, convection, and radiation. We talked about solar radiation is mainly electromagnetic energy, and the types are, I'm going over your notes. You might want to write it down. The types are generally where we get our heat is infrared, visible light, and UV. Okay, those are the frequencies of electromagnetic energy we get. Now, for the terrestrial radiation, normally it'll suck up all those bands of energy, and we'll talk about that with the energy balance today. But when it reflects it back out or re-radiates it back out into the atmosphere, it is generally just heat, which is infrared. And so that becomes your long wave energy being radiated back out. Whereas the visible light and UV, we consider short wave radiation. So it converts that short wave radiation into long wave radiation in the form of infrared. We talked about zenith angle change. That has to do with the heat distribution of the Earth because it's tilted 23 degrees. We talked about good conductors and some materials that are not. We didn't look at the conduction tables, but I said, hey, take a look at that. The things that I wanted you to really contrast is water with like quartz and metals and things like that you would find in the Earth. Okay, and what we found out was that combined conductivity combined with specific heat makes a big, huge difference in heat distribution on the Earth, and we talked about that. All right, there's specific heat. Q equals MC delta T. Y'all remember that? We had that? Okay. And then we said compare the specific heat of water, air, and silver, which was on the specific heat tables. And we saw that water has a huge, 4,000 joules, 4,600, I think it was, joules worth of specific heat. Air is a little bit lower, and silver is really low. Okay, so the temperature will go up pretty quick in the same amount of or mass of silver and air than water. And that's, we had these two videos on heat transfer and heat capacity. And normally, I'm going to kind of skip sounding. All sounding is taking a balloon with instruments and running it up, and then taking your data as you go up. That's what atmospheric sounding is taking data going up in the atmosphere. And what normally, we know that in the troposphere, the temperature normally descends, right? Usually goes from about 59 to 60 degrees down to about minus 60, okay, Fahrenheit, until you hit the tropopause. And when the pause is actually the temperature pause, isn't it? Okay. Then we talked about an isotherm. Is iso meaning same? Yes. Therm meaning heat. So if you have a map with an isotherm, it will be a line of the same temperature. All right. An inversion, everybody know what an inversion is? Instead of the temperature going down like it normally do, okay, or normally does, then the temperature actually goes up as you go up. There are times you can get into icing and you would think, hey man, I need to descend. If you're in a warm front, you actually can climb out of icing because there's an inversion. Okay, because the temperature of the air above the cold air might be above freezing, but when you get down in, when we talk about warm fronts, we'll talk about this, you can get down in the lower levels and you're below freezing. That's how you get sleet. All right. The water droplets above the mixed air is above freezing, so it's water. And then it hits the cold layer, which is below freezing. And as it's falling, it freezes. So freezing rain or sleet, you'll get in that kind of conditions. Okay, so there is a video on soundings. I'm not going to show that, but I am going to show this video on the Earth's heat balance, because that's what we're going to look at next. Okay. Here we go.
Earth's energy balance is an important aspect of weather and climate. It
About 8
shows
minutes.
how the energy of the Earth, the energy of the atmosphere, must be in a balance, or it will get too cold, or it will get too hot. And here are two scenarios. Earth's energy balance. Earth's energy balance, there are two scenarios. Scenario 1, and then finally scenario 2. Two scenarios that they must be here in order to show that balance, or it will get too hot or it'll get too cold, either way. All right, so let's look at this. We'll look at scenario 1. Earth's energy balance, scenario 1. Let's pretend that we have a block of ice. We have a block of ice here, which represents the polar regions. We have insolation, and I'll go ahead and put this here, insolation.
That's the
What
energy from the
happens when
sun.
you have ice and insolation hits it? Well, you have a high albedo,
Reflectivity.
and that reflects, that radiation reflects off of that surface, the high albedo surface, and so we have outgoing shortwave radiation, okay? Outgoing shortwave radiation. Therefore, there is high albedo, low absorption, and a low temperature. Okay, so insulation.
Everybody got that? Insolation is the energy from the sun. If it's white or light, that UV, right, and visible light and some of the IR is going to be reflected right back out. Right? Remember, that's the shortwave radiation, visible light, and UV. It'll be bounced right back out. Albedo means something will reflect if you have like a mountaintop that has snow on it, and then halfway down the mountain, there's no snow, you're going to have a huge difference in the energy distribution there, because on the top of the mountain, it's going to reflect most of the energy right out with the white. Whereas down the mountain, it's going to absorb energy. You think you'll start building convection currents around that, like a mountain wave and things? Yeah. So those definitely can create local aviation hazards.
Insolation comes into through the atmosphere, hits the surface that has a high albedo, such as ice, low absorption because it's high albedo. It reflects that solar radiation back out into the atmosphere or even into space, and then we get a low temperature at the surface. So we keep the temperatures low. Now, if we just had this, our Earth would be completely cold all the time. We'd have ice all the time. So this is scenario 1, the cold version. Now we go to scenario 2. Down here at the surface, we have some trees, we have a house or a structure of some sort, and
Asphalt, concrete.
Okay, so now we have, at this point, we know that's the opposite. So we go ahead and put low albedo. And if you have low albedo, what is the absorption going to be? Well, it's going to be high absorption. And if you have high absorption, then you have to have a high temperature.
Now, that being the case, if the temperature of your trees and everything else is higher than the atmospheric temperature, which way does energy run? High to low or low to high? Where did it run when you put your hand on the desk? High to low, yeah. Okay. So you can see if the temperature of all of that absorbing material is higher than the atmosphere, isn't that energy going to go right back out into the atmosphere? It's going to re-radiate and it'll basically cool it off. Okay, so you can see that high albedo, suck up all the energy, will create a high temperature, and then when it re-radiates it, it'll re-radiate it right back out into the atmosphere. Okay, until the temperatures level out. Then you have nothing to drive the energy. Okay, and by the way, it would be long wave radiation in the form of infrared. Makes sense based on what we've been talking about. Okay? Yeah? No? Okay.
So low albedo causes high absorption, which then results in a high temperature. So let's see how this works. All right, we have insolation, and I'm going to abbreviate it here. Insolation, IN, hits the surface of a low albedo. Therefore, you have high absorption, and then you start to emit long wave radiation.
That's your IR.
Well, in this case, from the surface, we have outgoing long wave radiation. So that's heat. It then gets into the atmosphere, and then there is another point of absorption. Now, this is not a cloud. This is definitely not a cloud, but it is the concept of the greenhouse gases. GHGS, the greenhouse gases, the greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases encompass dust, air pollution, CO2, methane, also water vapor is another type of greenhouse gas. Anything that absorbs heat, retains it, and then re-emits it. Okay, so this.
Okay, so in a greenhouse gas, the IR from the surface is going to warm that up, right? And then what happens when the atmospheric temperature is lower than the greenhouse gas? And they're going to re-radiate it right back out. Okay, so what's driving the energy transfer? The changes in temperature. Okay, as long as the temperature is low. Now, if the temperature of the atmosphere is high, then it would radiate it into the greenhouse gases up until the temperature of the greenhouse gases are higher, and then it's going to re-radiate it back out into the atmosphere. So it kind of gets bounced back and forth, okay?
This is a point of absorption. So now we've got absorption. We're creating more heat here in the greenhouse gases. We've got 2 points, two locations that the long wave radiation is going to go. Greenhouse gases keep it within the lower atmosphere. So we have incoming long wave radiation, and also we have to release some out into space, so we get outgoing long wave radiation. So the scenario two is basically the warm portion of the Earth's energy balance. With global warming and the climate change that we're experiencing now, this is more heavy. This portion or this scenario is more heavily weighted than this one. Okay, when climate change is done and we reach that threshold of going back into an ice age, then this is less weighted and this becomes more weighted. So it becomes more cold. Okay, and we'll definitely investigate this further on in the later video lectures. So in order to maintain a balance, you have to have some radiation that is not absorbed by the surface of the Earth. It has to be released as outgoing short-wave radiation. Okay. On the other side of this, you got to have some long-wave radiation heating the atmosphere, or to get too cold. So you got to keep this balance. And how it balances out is that you have outgoing short-wave radiation, and you also have outgoing long-wave radiation. It's very important to have these two components working to release some heat out of the atmosphere, or it'll get too hot. Okay, you definitely get too hot. So let's go through this one more time. Scenario one, you have insulation that comes in through the atmosphere, a surface of high albedo, which results in a low absorption of energy, which then results in a low temperature, because there is now a reflection of that shortwave radiation going out into space. Scenario two, you have insulation.
Okay, I'm going to stop that right there, and I'm going to ask the question. Okay, I'm at the beach. All right, I'm chilling. Okay, and I'm not redheaded, but my youngest son is a redhead. Okay, and so if you burn easily, right, you're at the beach, you burn easily. But I am cool. I'm going to sit under a daggum umbrella, and I'm going to be shaded from all that stuff. Can I still be burnt? Why? That short wave radiation off of the sand, which has a very high albedo, bounces right back up under the umbrella, even if you're in the shade. Yep. All right. So that's one example of a very high albedo that is reflecting UV invisible light. That's why it's light. Same thing. Here's another example. If you ever get stuck out in the snow or you're out skiing, don't they wear sunglasses? And why would that be? Snow blindness. And why would you get snow blind? Because snow has a very high albedo and it's reflecting the higher energy, shorter wave radiation back into your eyes. Okay, so two good examples of the albedo and reflectivity. Okay. And so the total amount of energy that comes in from the sun has to bounce around and do a bunch of stuff. You know, it's either going to get reflected back out, right? It's going to be absorbed and reflected back out, or it's going to get bounced around the Earth and then get reflected back out. But bottom line, however many joules of energy come into the atmosphere has to go back out. Okay, if 30 million in, we got to have 30 million out. Okay, if we hold on too much, it gets too warm. If we give out too much,
it gets too cold. We had ice ages in the last, we had a mini ice age in 1400 or 1200s. Okay, we had a mini ice age then. Okay, almost all of Europe starved. Right? And of course now we're on a trend, I think, where the temperature is, stays within a couple of degrees of each other, and you get temperature trends that go up, you get temperature trends that go down. Okay, all depending upon total amount of energy coming in and the total amount of energy going out, and we call that the Earth's energy balance, don't we? Okay, and we're going to look at that.
And this whole
Go ahead.
is what causes any other causes weather, right?
Oh yeah, and it's the the energy distribution is what, and we're going to talk about that. We get energy distribution horizontally and vertically, and it's the vertical distribution that causes the weather. Well, and horizontal. We're looking at some horizontal on the hurricane right now. Yeah, but
Speaking of the hurricane, can you guess how I know whatever it's without checking the weather?
you want to
Pressure is just enough to always completely wreck my sinuses
right now, right?
right now.
Well, the middle of the storm is about, well, guys, what's standard pressure? 10, 13, right? Well, it was 940 this morning in the eye wall, in the Cat 4. Yeah, that's low pressure, 940 something. So yeah, and as the closer that thing gets, we're talking about a hurricane. Hurricanes actually distribute energy. It's probably one of the bigger distributors of energy on the Earth, and boy, I'll tell you, it does. Is a hurricane high or low pressure system? Well, we just said it's 940, so okay. Which way does a hurricane rotate? How come?
Orioles.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah. And does low pressure suck or flow? Anybody run a vacuum lately? Anybody breathe in lately? Low pressure sucks air in. Okay. So I got me a daggum 940 or so millibar low pressure system. Okay, which is what, about 350 millibars below, standard. So what's the air going to do? Get sucked in, right? Okay, now we're going to look at it horizontally. So it's getting sucked in there. And in fact, it's getting sucked in 360 degrees around it. All right, hold your right hand up. Which way does the air bend in the northern hemisphere? To the right. Okay. Let's bend it to the right. How's that? We're going to do this when we talk about pressure systems. Look at that. So sure enough, you get that. That's why you get the counterclockwise horizontal motion. Makes sense, doesn't it? It's sucking all that air in. Okay. So horizontally, it has to go counterclockwise. What about vertically? Okay, let's look at it on the side. It's getting pulled in. Okay, so it's getting pulled in. Where's it got to go? Yep. So on the inside part of that storm, you're getting a huge vertical movement. Well, what happens when you get huge vertical movement? What happened to the vapor in the atmosphere? It expands, temperature goes down, and it condenses. This is why on the inside of the storm, you get all of these crazy, updrafts in the middle of the storm. Okay? What happens when it gets up high? Cools off, doesn't it? Oh, okay. So it does this. Okay? On both sides. Okay? So basically, a big old hurricane like this is kind of like a slinky on both sides, right? And then it's twisting around like this. This is why you have an eye. Okay. So yeah, hurricane is crazy. All right, and we're gonna get the outer. I think we're gonna get the outer bands of it. Hopefully, the outer bands, not the eye. That would be nice. And we've already had a bunch of rain, so a la Hurricane Matthew. Y'all remember that one? A couple of years ago? Oh yeah, that's when they had to fill the dam over at Wood Lake. That's why there's been no lake in Wood Lake for the last 7 or 8 years. And in fact, they were just starting to fix that thing. Did they get it done? I know they started. I don't know if they got it done. Do I now? They got it done? Yeah, I heard that too. But yeah, I guess the lake will fill up pretty good. Across the little river there. So hopefully, during Matthew, when it did break, everything downstream towards Fort Bragg there, even into Spring Lake flooded. It's crazy. Anyway, okay. All right. So, this makes sense? I'm off track, but we'll get back. All right. Looking at the energy balance. All right. I'm going to go to the PowerPoint, so follow on your notes here. All right. Let's see. Share application here. There's the PowerPoint. Okay. Maybe. Where'd it go? I love technology when it works. Yeah, I got that. Let's try this again. Stop sharing that. Let me see if I can pull up that PowerPoint again. Okay. It died. Give me a second to pull it up again. Sometimes that happens. Okay. Weather PowerPoints. Let's see. Okay, we will open it with PowerPoints for the web. Let's try it again. Okay, slideshow from the beginning. There we go. Let me share that thing. So this one's actually working. Okay, so real quick. We've looked at the first parts of this: temperature, weather, temperature scales. Everybody cool on the 3 temperature scales? Transfer of heat, conduction, convection, radiation. And that we deal with all of that. Talked about solar and terrestrial radiation. Remember, solar, most of the solar energy is in fact shortwave. That's your visible light and your IR. And then we do get a bunch of infrared from the sun too, but when we absorb all 3 of those bands of energy, we only re-radiate it out. And we don't, for the most part, we don't re-radiate it out in visible light, do we? Unless it glows, right? And we don't put it back out in UV. So whenever something is re-radiated, the warmth is infrared or long wave. I need you to understand that. That's important to us. Heat capacity and conductivity, cool with that? We saw that. Like I said, I'm not going to cover this, so take a look at that in your reading. Okay, I'm going to make this bigger. Maybe. No, I'm not. Okay. If you'll see this chart right there, it's a little bit difficult to see, but I will highlight what it's trying to tell you. Okay. Up here, these are percentages. Okay. That's 100% of the radiation coming in from the sun to the earth. Okay. And it's electromagnetic energy. We said it's infrared, right? It's visible light, which has its own energy. It's UVA, UVB, and X-rays and gamma rays. All of those are coming to the earth. all right? 100% of it. So what happens to it? Well, 19% of it gets sucked up into the atmosphere. 46% makes it to the surface, okay? 8% bounces off the atmosphere. 17% bounces off the clouds. You see what's happening there? Of that makes it to the Earth, 6% of it, again, with the albedo, gets bounced right back out into the atmosphere. Okay, mainly at the poles or where we have a lot of snow. Much more in the wintertime, right? Especially at the high altitude. All right? So you can see only 46% of that 100 actually makes it into the Earth. Everything else gets either absorbed, coming in, or bounced out. Okay? So what happens when it warms up the Earth? Right? Warms up, re-radiates out back out into the atmosphere. And again, this is short-wave, right? And this is just heat. So that's all long-wave or infrared going back out. And 15% of it goes on up, out, if you will. That's 15% of the 100 over here. And 6% of it goes right back into the atmosphere and gets absorbed. 40% either through all of this gets bounced back into space. And then the clouds and the greenhouse suck up a bunch of energy. And again, in the video, we saw that it got bounced right back out into space. Some of it gets bounced right back down to the Earth. Okay? And these have the percentages of basically the energy balance. Okay? Anybody see this before? The ninth grade or science? Okay, within the last 5 or 6 years. All right. So to balance the Earth's heat, this 100% in should equal this 100% out. Then with the total temperature will not rise. So part of that radiation, again, almost 60% of it, actually is reflected right back into space. Part of it absorbed by the atmosphere and the Earth itself, that's right here. And then once it heats up, it re-radiates that heat back into the atmosphere and is kept against the Earth by the greenhouse effect, and some is lost back in space. All right? When we talk about solar radiation, that's when we're talking about your short wave, right? Your UV, your visible light, and your IR. When we talk about terrestrial radiation, we're 100% only talking about infrared. We're only talking about long wave radiation. Okay. So when the lands and the oceans, they heat up, and then they re-radiate it into the atmosphere, the clouds and sun escape into space. The greenhouse gases will suck up some. Here's some of the greenhouse gases: CO2, water, methane, ozone. You know that ozone already sucks up UV, but also is part of our greenhouse gases. And it keeps that heat energy in the lower atmosphere. This is why we have a 15 degrees Celsius average temperature all over the Earth, which is a good thing. Retaining the heat will depend upon latitude, water vapor, surface composition, and plant cover. Has anybody been out in the desert at night? It's cold. Yeah, you can go out in the desert in Yuma, Arizona, you know, during the day. Hey, it's nice. It's about 100 degrees, no problem. Okay? And then at night, all right, 35. Okay? People are freezing. Beautiful thing. Really hot. But if you go to the tropics, or even here, okay, say yesterday it was, say, 90 degrees. What was it overnight? 70 to 75, yeah. There was only a temperature range of maybe 20 degrees. Okay? So obviously there's a lot of energy that's being retained. Okay? And so it's got a high albedo. All right, compared to temperature variation in forested areas compared to desert. Well, we're a forested area, pretty much, aren't we? Yeah. So you think about a 50, 60 degree temperature change versus maybe a 20, 30 degree temperature change, mainly because of reflectivity and the radiated or reflected back out. And the temperature and imbalance, okay. Here, sensible heat. All right, this is the last slide, I believe. there is a difference between sensible heat and latent heat, okay? And I believe, this is the last thing I'll talk about, is on your notes. Check the back side of your notes. There is actually someplace in there, in fact, it might be module 3, on your next set of notes. Yeah, I think it's on your next set of notes. I put the actual water, basically the freezing and when it turns into a gas and everything like that. Let me get rid of this. What happens here when water freezes? It's below, of course, below the freezing temperature. All right, kind of crazy. Okay, we're going to say temperature and energy added. Did I get that right? Yeah, I think so. Okay, as the temperature goes up, okay, is that right? Yep. All of a sudden, you're below, you hit 0. It's ice down here, right? What happens when it reaches 0?
Like you're talking about this.
Yeah, how come it's a stair step? There's a good reason.
It's like sublimation.
No, not quite. Okay, but you're kind of on the right track, though. All of a sudden, the temperature stops going up. Why? Because it's going from ice to liquid water. Okay, so it's changing phase. It's changing state. Well, in order for it to change phase, it takes energy. Okay. Then all of a sudden, it's completely a liquid. Boom, temperature starts shooting up, and it's fairly linear until you hit what 100 degrees C, right? And then all of a sudden, boom, and you'll notice this line is longer. The temperature stops going up again because it's turning from a liquid to a gas. Yeah. All right. And it takes energy for it to change phase. Okay. This, by the way, is called latent heat. It's not, it's energy that's taken in, absorbed, or given off, but you're not changing temperature. All you're doing is changing phase. All right? And this is called the heat of fusion, and this is called the heat of vaporization. Okay? And the heat of vaporization, in order to turn it into a gas, it's much, much higher. I think it's like 570 versus 87, something like that. So you see it's about almost 9 times more energy to turn it into a gas. So what's happening? Think about it. As the air goes up, temperature drops, pressure drops, and you get condensation, yes? Okay. All right, so it's coming this way. Oh, it's condensing. So it's actually giving off energy, isn't it? Coming down the line, it's giving away energy. So as it's condensing, it's giving away energy. So it's going to make it condense even more. Okay? And so this is why your cumulonimbus clouds will climb like crazy, because you're putting a bunch of that latent heat into the atmosphere. Think about how much moisture is condensing, going up in a cumulus cloud. Okay? And that's one of the drivers for a thunderstorm. All right? So latent heat is an exchange of energy, and the temperature is, so the temperature's not going up. You're just exchanging heat to change phase. Okay? That kind of makes sense?
Pretty lots.
Okay. That's why I'm a science teacher.
I was about to say you had to be.
Yeah. Okay, so the water vapor rises, the temperature and the pressure falls, causing the water to condense back in the liquid state. And condensation again causes a bunch of energy, of latent heat energy, 570 kilogram, I think. I forget the number. You have to look it up. But it's just you're pouring a bunch of energy into the atmosphere, through the condensation process. Okay. And by the way, if you're gonna get rid of these clouds, you're gonna suck up a lot of energy. Okay, because again, it takes energy to turn something from a liquid into vapor. Okay. Oh, right. Well, I'll let you guys go in a second. So direct sunlight is more concentrated at the equator. We've already talked about that. And the energy becomes dispersed with the latitude, very high latitude. And so you're going to, part of that is going to give you a imbalance of energy, which is going to make things move both in vertical and horizontal direction. Okay. So energy comes vertically, energy comes horizontally. Next class, we'll cover diurnal and seasonal changes. That'll be the last thing in Module 2, and then we'll kick off Module 3, which has to do with the water cycle. Do you think the water cycle would be intertwined with energy motion? Well, take a look at the hurricane right now, and we'll figure it out, right? Okay, so we'll talk about the water cycle next. All right, questions? We good? All right. Yeah, just do quiz on. All right, it's due by midnight. Is that okay? Okay. And if you're online, it's due by midnight too. Okay.
Tomorrow, there's no school, maybe.
No, they haven't said no school career yet.
Warren County just did.
They said that for us tomorrow?
Not for us, Warren County.
Okay.
They said no. It's on Instagram.
So I don't have schoolwork, so I can.
No, they did for Hope Center, but have they said it for here too?
Yeah, but Warren County schools are in.
Okay, so more County schools, well, they haven't made the announcement for years. So.
Are you saying it's like saying why didn't I work down everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, because I got that like I've been turning story.
I sent, like, it's kind of like my little speech today.
Yeah.
If I'm talking to you, pay attention. If I'm not talking to you, don't worry about it. Yeah.
Speaking of what you mentioned at the beginning, I was late by 5 minutes. I wanted to let you know I don't really have any thought the weather. It doesn't really mess with me.
Yeah, that's fine. Like I said, stuff happens, and I understand that. And I'm trying not to be an ass about it, but I want to make sure that,
Sometimes you got to put your foot down.
Yeah, once in a while. Well, I just recorded that. All right, guys. I just recorded that I'm an ass. Okay.
So do we have class tomorrow?
They haven't announced for the Pinehurst yet. Okay, yeah, let me check.
They sent out an email and a message.
Yeah, I got a text for Hope. I did not. Hello from Sand Hills, Thursday. Hope Center's closed. That's the only one I have so far. Okay. Yeah, I don't have it for the Pinehurst, but they just closed more county schools. So just watch the,
So if they
website.
do cancel classes, am I supposed to show up in our Collaborate, or are we just not having class?
No, if they cancel, it'll be canceled.
Okay.
Okay, now I may do a class online or something. I don't know. I haven't decided. Just watch your emails. I'll let you guys know.
Okay.
At least for my classes. Okay. Yay. Thanks for coming on board. Make sure you just let me know. I don't know if you emailed me. I didn't check my emails. If you're going to come on Collaborate, just give me a heads up so I know to record it. I wasn't going to record today. So.
Did you get the text message I sent you yesterday?
Did what now?
Did you get the text message I sent you yesterday about joining?
I don't remember a text message from you. Make sure you email me. That's probably the best way.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you can text me, I'm okay with that too. But I don't remember seeing one.
Okay. Could you? I just want to make sure I'm texting the right number because I texted you yesterday and a few days ago.
All righty. Yeah, just email me or